Welcome, welcome to another episode of Prepress and Business Ethics. I am John Kawa, your host, and I will be with you for the next hour. And there is Stephen, the
Morning.
amazing. How are you doing this morning?
Okay.
Good, good. Okay, I'm going to get started. There are several things I want to discuss, but first and foremost, I want to make sure that everybody understands this resolution business. It's one of these things that you know we have to know. We just have to know this because it's so vital to graphic design for print graphics, and it's something that is, for me, just to personally kind of explain, to tell you how I feel about it. I came from measurements, and we were grilled into understanding measurements in my day of graphics. We were we just had to know that, fractions of an inch, and how to measure something. And then the internet came along, and the web came along, and everything turned into pixels. And it just seemed like it just turned the whole measurement system upside down, because now we were dealing with pixel dimensions and rather than inch dimensions. And I mean, honestly, it took me a while to kind of figure this out. But I realized that it was so necessary to understand how to convert pixels to inches. So I really have to insist that we understand this, and because you can't go on, you just can't go on in preparing a print file to a printer without understanding resolution. Unless, of course, you don't care what your photos look like. In that case, you could put down anything you want on an InDesign document. But if you want sharpness and you want your photos to come out good, then you've got to understand resolution. So anyway, we started talking about this last class, and I think this just takes a few sessions to understand. There is going to be a test on this. I'm not really big on tests and quizzes, but this one has to be. I have to test you on whether or not you understand this. It's that important. So I want to go over again the basics of resolution. Basically, how to convert pixels into inches. And then vice versa, how to convert inches into pixels. Now, if you get it, then just bear with me. But if you are not quite sure, then please listen and study, because this is again vitally important. Okay, so first of all, again, the reason we need to do this is because when we're dealing with a print document, we're dealing with inches. We're dealing with paper. We're dealing with a certain size of paper. We're dealing with images that are a certain size printed on this piece of paper. But when we construct our file, when we build our file, we're building it digitally in a computer software program, InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, whatever. And when we're dealing with images, we're dealing with those images being made out of pixels. And so we really have to understand the concept of, what a pixel is. We have to understand, and I think, you probably know that, but I am going to move over to Photoshop and go back. We're going to go back to school on pixels. And I'm in Photoshop right now, and I have a photo here. It's a photo that I took of our kitchen. And what you're seeing here is simply a photo. There's not much other information that you're getting from this. But I'm going to zoom in to this photo. So I'm going to grab my magnification tool, and I will just zoom, 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 zoom. Okay. I'm going to zoom in so far that this image ends up turning into pixels. That's what a pixel is. And that's really what you're looking at when you're looking at a photograph. You're just looking at, I'm scrolling up here, and this makes no sense to you at all because we're so magnified in. But you can see that this is what's called resolution. So when you look at a photo, the photo is made up of tiny squares or pixels. And when we talk about pixels per inch, or PPI, what we're talking about is how many pixels across are there in 1 inch. Pixels per inch. And in order to print something on paper, on a printing press, we need at least 300 pixels per inch. Okay? 300. Just memorize that number, 300. There's only 2 numbers that we need to memorize when it comes to pixels per inch. One is 300 if we're doing anything that's going to be printed on paper. And the other dimension is, does anybody know what the other, what is the web pixel per inch requirement?
72?
72. Yes, exactly. Okay? So when we're uploading a photo to the web, whether it's social media or your website or anything, all you need is 72 pixels per inch in order to get sharp, clean resolution. In other words, for your photos to look sharp. When we're printing, though, we need over 3 times the resolution. Otherwise, we're dead. We're blurry, we're pixelated, it's terrible. Okay, so that's what 300 pixels per inch mean. I'm going to back out of this. So every photo that you see has a resolution, okay? A native resolution, meaning that this is what the resolution was when it was captured by the camera. Every photo is captured by a camera. Now you can change the settings in your camera to capture images at different resolutions. You could do that. I recommend, however, that if you do have a camera, shoot all your photos in the highest resolution that your camera will shoot. Okay? Because once you have those pixels, you always have them. But if you shoot a photo at a low resolution, you can never grow those pixels to more. You cannot increase the amount of pixels. Now, the other day we had this conversation about, oh, can't you just take it into Photoshop and just increase the pixels? You can't do that because they weren't there to start with. So where are you going to get them? Where are you going to get more pixels? So if you have them, you can always throw out the pixels that you don't need. Okay? It's kind of like, hey, as long as I have a lot of this, I can always throw the ones away. But I can't grow more and I can't add more. So what we want to do is we want to be very careful about what the resolution is in our document because we need to make sure that it prints well. Okay. So I gave the example the other, and I'm going to open up InDesign because I want to give this example again. And I'm just going to open up a 8.5 by 11 page. Make it nice and simple. Letter size page. 8.5 by 11. Okay. So normally when we would create a a layout, we would do a thumbnail or whatever, but we would start placing images on this page to the size that we want them to print. And so we have to know what size these images are in order to know, what resolution our photos have to be. Okay, we can't just start grabbing photos and just bringing them in and just yanking them up and enlarging them or reducing them at random, because we have to pay attention to the PPI, and that's what I kind of went over last class. Is let me get this up here. I opened up the links panel, and when you put a photo in here, you see the information of that photo. Okay, and it tells you what the resolution is of that photo. I'm going to go back to Photoshop, for instance. Okay, now first of all, let's set up an example. Let's say, again, I want a photograph to cover the entire width of this page, my kitchen photo. Let's say I want my kitchen photo to at least be half of this page. That's my that's my design. Okay. Now I know the page is 8.5 inches, and I know the depth of, or the height of my page is 11 inches. So I need a photo that has enough resolution to cover 8.5 inches. Now photos are set up in pixels, then I would have to know how to convert pixels to inches to see if I have enough, right? Okay, so that's the problem. And those are the things that are going to be on the test. Is I'm going to give you situations where you have to make these conversions from pixels to inches and from inches to pixels. So we want to, and I want to make this as practical and realistic as possible. Okay, so what the plan is. The plan is we're going to, we want this, and I'll just draw a box in here right now to just kind of give you an idea of, I want a photo to be about that big. Okay, I'll just fill this with black for now. Okay, so the black represents what my photo wants to be. Now I have to go find out if that photo that I took of my kitchen is going to fill this, at the right resolution it needs to be. And what resolution does it need to be if we're printing this?
300.
300. Okay, very good. So you've got that in your mind. 300 for print. Okay, so let's go back to Photoshop and take a look at this photograph here. Okay, right now we have no information as far as what the pixel dimensions of this image is, but it's very easy in Photoshop to find out what your pixel dimension is by going up to Image up here and just going to Image Size. Okay, so that's going to be one of the questions on the test, is how do you find the image size of a photo in Photoshop? Very simple. Image size. Okay? And when you click image size, you're going to get the image size dialog box. It's going to show you what the current pixel dimension of that photo is. And right now, well, it was taken with a DSLR camera, and it was taken with a very nice, a good camera that has 21 megapixels. And so the image that it shot was 5472 by 3648. That's a very high resolution photo. But what does that come out to in terms of inches? Well, here it is right here. at a resolution of 300, I will get cleanly an image that will print 18 inches by 12 inches in height. See that?
Mm-hmm.
That tells me that this photo right here has plenty of resolution to fill my page, right? Because I only need 8.5 inches by, roughly what, 6 inches here? That's all I need. But what do I get with this photo? I get 18 inches by 12 inches. That's way more than I need. Okay? So this photo is going to be fine for this layout. Okay. Now, how is that figured out? How do we know it's 18 by 12? Well, Photoshop figured it out. It did the math for us. But we don't always have Photoshop with us. We don't always have this calculator with us. So we need to know how to do this ourselves. And the way you do it is simply you take the target resolution that you need, we know that's 300, and you divide it into the native pixel resolution of the photo. So if you divided 300 into 5472, you would get 18.24. And that tells you how many inches that photo would be. If you divided 300 into 3648, you would get 12.16. Okay, so you see how that works? You're taking the target resolution and you're dividing it into the pixel resolution, the native pixel resolution of the shot. This is set in stone. This is what the camera captured. You can't change this. Now you can throw out pixels, but if you needed more than 5472 by 3648, you can't do it. Okay? So that's why camera manufacturers are always, trying to get you to buy cameras that shoot the highest resolution. Because the higher the resolution of the image, the bigger it will print cleanly. So if you're doing a big poster that's going to be in a store, you need to shoot that photo with a ultra high resolution. Otherwise, the photo is not going to be that sharp. Okay, so that's how we make the conversion from pixels to inches. We divide the target resolution of 300 into the pixel dimension. Okay, easy enough. Here is another photo of my kitchen. Okay, this is the same photo as this. The exact same photo. It's been retouched. It's been retouched in Lightroom, and I'm not going to go over the retouching of this, but once it was retouched in Lightroom, my intention for this photo was to post it on social media or post it in Google Photos. Okay, that's where this is going to live. This will never be printed on paper. It will stay on the web for its entire life. So this photo does not have to be 300 pixels per inch. It was originally shot at 300 pixels per inch, but then it was downsized to 72 pixels per inch because that's all I need for the internet, right? All I need is 72. So if I look at this photo and I go up to image size, you can see that the resolution is 72 inches. I mean 72 pixels per inch. I downsized it. Now I downsized this in Lightroom. But basically what I did was I just reduced the pixels per inch to 72. Well, when I do that, look at how big this photo can be on the internet. It can be 28 inches wide by 18 inches deep on the internet. It cannot be this big in print. It can't be this big in print because in print it has to be 300. Watch what happens when I change this to 300. Watch the width and height in inches. 300 goes down now to 6 by 4. Okay? The original resolution of this shot, after I downsized it to 72, became 2048 by 1340. It became much smaller because I down-resed it to 72. The original shot was 54 something by, right? It was huge. So this is something that, if this was the original shot that the camera shot and I wanted to print it, now I can only print it at 6 by 4 or 6.8, so almost 7 inches by 4.5 inches, right? That's the biggest I could print this for clarity. So if I went back and I placed that photo in my InDesign document, I can only print it 6 and, like this by what, 4.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the biggest that picture can get printed for clarity. So if I enlarge that this big, I'm going to lose resolution, right?
Yes.
Okay? That's what I want you all to understand. I want you to understand that the resolution has to match has to be equal to or greater than the size that you want your photo to be in your layout.
Quick
Okay?
question.
Yes.
Last lesson you told us.
Uh-huh.
I understand the dividing, but you said
Mm-hmm.
something about multiplying, and I didn't write the notes, and I didn't
Okay.
for the video.
I'll
So
get to that in one sec, Cindy. So just hold on a sec. So we're just going right now from pixels to inches. Okay, because that's our problem that we have to solve, right? We have a pixel dimension photo and we need to figure out how many inches that's going to be. We know how to do that now. Divide our target resolution of 300 into our pixel dimension, and that's what your inch dimension is going to be. Okay. Going back to Photoshop here. Cancel out of this. Okay. Now, so again, let me just expand upon this just a bit. So in our layout, we knew we wanted a photo this size. So we know what, we know that this is 8.5 by, about 6 inches. Okay. Now, let's say we know what this photo wants to be. Okay, I know I want a photo. I know what the inch dimension is, right? 8.5 by 6. So now I need to go look for a photo. So now I need to find a photo that has enough pixels in it in order to fit this. So now we're going the other way, right? We know inches, but now we have to find out how many, we need to find a photo that has enough pixels to fill this. So now I have to convert inches to pixels and then go look for a photo that has that amount of pixels. See, in our previous example, I already had a photo. And we converted these pixels to inches. But now I don't have a photo. Now I'm looking for a photo. So if it's 8.5 by 6, what does the pixel dimension have to be in order to find a photo that fits this? Now we multiply. Okay? So when we know inches and we're looking for pixels, we need to multiply inches by our target resolution of 300. The target never changes. It's always 300 for print. So now I have to go 8.5 times 300 and 8.5 times 6. And that gives me the pixel dimension of what I need to find in terms of a photo, right? Does that make sense?
yeah, so every time we multiply, we have to do it by 6 by 8 or whatever not 6 by 8, but like we'll get the target resolution multiply it by the pixels or the inches.
By the inches.
Okay.
And the inches are determined by what you want in your layout. Let's say in my layout, I only needed a photo that big. Okay? That photo is only 3 by 3. You know, it's basically 3.5 by 3, right?
Right.
So in order to find a photo that has enough resolution to fill a 3.5 by 3, I would multiply 3.6 times 300 and 3.04 times 300.
Okay, pretty simple. Okay, thank you.
And I would look for a photo that has that much resolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
So basically, you're taking the target resolution of 300 and you're multiplying it by whatever inch dimension you want that photo to be. If I wanted the photo to be this big, now I have to do 300 times 5.5 and 300 by 3.9.
Is that what you do when you put it on paper? You put a square first? Is that like a thumbnail that you're doing like on InDesign? Like you do a little square, then you put your pictures out through there?
I usually do that, yes. I
Okay.
usually kind of roughly rough out where my photos want to be um, with kind of black squares, you know, like, so if I'm doing an advertisement and I know I want a big photo here, and then let's say I'm going to just dupe this off. Let's say I want 3 photos underneath this, like maybe one there and one here, oops, and one here. Okay, and then there's going to be some text down here. Okay, I might rough this out. You know, I might even put a text box here and fill it with some placeholder text. Go up to type and go fill with placeholder text and just throw some text in here. And this is kind of my idea of what that ad's going to look like. All right, these are going to be individual photos of things. And you know, once I have this kind of rough layout, then I'm going to click on these boxes and say, well, what size is that? That's about a 2 by 1 or 2 by 2, right? It's about square. So I'm going to go 2.1 times 300, 2.1 times 300, right? That's
Yeah.
600 by 600 pixels. And then I'm going to go find a photo that has at least 600 by 600 pixels.
Well,
Okay?
I like this idea. I'm gonna use it because I think it's easier.
Yeah. Um, so, yeah, however you want to calculate this and figure this out in your brain, you know, I say employ whatever method that makes sense to you. Okay. And but the key is that whatever we place on a page, we have to make sure it has enough resolution to fill that inch dimension. Okay. If our photo does not have enough resolution to fill this big photo here, we're going to be in trouble in terms of how it comes out. So that's what I really want you to concentrate on. Now, a quick way in InDesign to know whether your photo has enough resolution is to select your photo and go to links, and you'll see that information here. Okay, watch what happens when I bring this photo in, this photo here, or this big photo. Let's take this big, giant, high-res photo, okay? This super high resolution photo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this out as a JPEG. Okay, it's going to come, it's going to save as, you know, the same resolution that you see it here. It's going to be huge. And I'm going to save this to the desktop. And I'll just name this kitchen. Okay, kitchen JPEG. Okay, so there it is. It appeared on my desktop. Now I'm going to go into InDesign. Let me get rid of this photo here, or this placeholder. I'm going to take this kitchen photo and I'm going to drag it into InDesign. Okay, and I have the place icon here. Now, if I just clicked, it's going to come in at its native resolution, which is 5,400. It's going to be huge. Watch what happens if I just click. Look at how big this photo is. It's so big that it's just basically just covering my entire, okay? This is the actual inch dimension of that native resolution. Okay? I mean, it's huge. What did we say we get at native resolution?
Uh,
18 by 12, right?
yeah.
So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing an 18-inch wide photo. This is only 8.5 by 11, right? So this is way bigger than my, than my page, right? That's what happens if you just click. I'm going to delete that. So usually what you do is you bring your photo in and you wait for the place icon, and then you kind of click and drag where you want it to be. And it comes in at the proportion that it is. You can't do anything about the proportion, all right? This happens to be a little bit deeper than what I wanted. Okay, so there, I placed it. Now, this is much smaller than the 18 by 12 at native resolution. So when I look down here in this, the minute I place this, this populated here, I have all this information. I look down here and see under dimensions, this tells you what the native resolution of that photo was. It's 5472 by 3648. It's the same thing that Photoshop read right here, 5472 by 3648, right?
Mm-hmm.
What it's telling me is that this is at 300 pixels per inch, but the effective PPI, in other words, the pixels per inch that we're actually getting at this size, is way more than what we need. Look at that. 644 pixels per inch. Okay? We don't need this many pixels in this photo. All we need is 300. Okay? But because we brought it in at its native resolution of 5472, it came in huge. And so we sized it down. We reduced the size here. But what happened? We got much more pixels than we possibly need. Okay? All we need is 300. So rather than do that, now this will print, okay? It will print. If we sent this to a printer, they would say, all right, okay, we'll print that. You have enough resolution. You have more than what you need, but it'll work. So having more effective PPI is still okay, but it's, what you want to do is try and get this close to the 300. Okay, so here's how you would do that. Okay. Okay. If I made this smaller, okay, I'm going to reduce this down and watch the effective PPI get bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
See how it gets bigger? Because the smaller this is, the more effective PPI you get. If I made this bigger, the PPI starts dropping until once it gets to 300, I have my 18 by 12 photo again, right? That huge photo. So we need to really throw out some pixels in Photoshop. I'm going to save that for another day, okay, to show you how to throw out pixels. Right now, the test is not going to be cover anything about how to do that, how to eliminate pixels. So don't worry about that. All the test is going to ask you is how to convert from pixels to inches and from inches to pixels. Okay, so for now, just know how to, know how to do that. So let me give you some sample questions. You will be asked on the quiz to define what PPI is. Okay, and that's easy, pixels per inch. You will be asked, what is the target resolution for the internet and what is the target resolution for print? And that's easy. One is 72 and one is 300. Okay, that's why I say there's only two resolutions that you really have to memorize: 72 for the web, 300 for print. Another question will be, how do you find uh, a certain pixel dimension if you're given an inch dimension? And you would say you divide the pixel dimension by 300. Okay, I mean divide the inch dimension by 300. I'm sorry, multiply the inch dimension by 300, and that will give you the pixel dimension. If you divide the pixel dimension by 300, that will give you the inch dimension. Okay, so just know those two things. I'll repeat it again. In order to find the pixel dimension, when you know you have an inch dimension, so if you're given 8.5 inches and you want to know how many pixels is that for print, you would multiply 300 times 8.5. If you were given 2,400 pixels and you wanted to know how many inches is that on my page, you would divide 300 into 2,400. And that would tell you you have 8 inches, right? Because 3 times 8 is 24. Does that make sense? Right?
Yes.
Okay? So as long as you know how to do that, you will be able to
And we get one attempt on the test, right?
yeah. Yes. One attempt. Okay. So if I gave you a dimension in pixels like 600 by 900, and I asked you how many inches would that be in a document, 600 by 900, what would you say? 600 pixels by 900 pixels.
And
How many?
I'm trying to find the inches or the pixels.
You're trying to find the inches.
Okay, so then I would divide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what would that be?
Well, I have you on record on my phone, so I can't. Let me see if I can do both.
Do it in your head. Come on. Just think about it. 600 divided by 300. 6 divided by 3 is what? 2 inches, right? Come on, you can use your head. There's so much of our brains we don't use, man. We go to our calculator when it's so simple, all right? 3 divided into 6 is 2. So it would be 2 inches by 2 okay, 900, 3 into 9 is what?
3.
3. So the inch dimension would be a 2 inch by 3 inch image, right?
Right.
Okay, see how that works?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, if I gave you the inch dimension, 2 inches by 3 inches, and I asked you to find out what is that in pixels, what would you say? 2 inches, 2 times 300 is 600, right?
Right.
2 times 300 is 900, so it would be 600 by 900 pixels.
Right.
Okay? You'll get it. You'll get it. After you do this, you'll understand how to go back and forth from pixels to inches and inches to pixels. Now, when you're dealing with the web, you just have to use a different target, a target resolution, which is 72 now. It's not 300. So if I said your inch dimension is 2 inches by 3, what is it in pixels for the web? You would multiply 2 times 72 by 3 times 72, right? 2 times 72 by 3 times 72. And that would be the pixel dimension you need for the web. Okay, so all you're dealing with is 2 target resolutions. One is for the web, one is for print. Now remember I told you last week that you might be doing a project that both is going to be printed and is going to be on the web, right? So now you're having to design your ad or whatever to accommodate both resolutions, 72 and 300. 300 for print, 72 for the web. In that case, always design to print. because that is the highest resolution. Then when you have to design the same piece for the web, you can always throw out pixels if you have to. Okay? So the idea is always have more than not enough, okay, in your images. Okay, another question will be, how do you find in Photoshop, how would you find the pixel dimensions or inch dimensions of your image? Well, I said you go to the image size menu. Okay, so given that question, how do you find the pixel dimension of this photo in Photoshop? You
You
go
put
up to the image size menu, and there it is, right there. You have pixel dimensions here, it gives you, and you have inch dimensions here, it gives you. Okay, so you have everything you need to know about this photo, whether it's inches or whether it's pixels. Okay, and then I threw in a question that asks you, do you need high resolution in your image for social media? And the answer is no, right? Because social media is on the internet. So all you need is 72 pixels per inch if you're going to post photos on Instagram or Facebook or Behance or anything like that. Anything on that's being viewed on a screen only need 72 pixels per inch. And then can you, in Photoshop, make a low resolution photo a high resolution photo? And what would you say to that?
Yeah, you can make a high resolution into a low resolution.
No, the other way around. A low
Oh,
resolution
no,
in.
you can't. No, you
You
can't.
cannot. Okay, that's correct. You cannot take few pixels and grow them into a lot of pixels. Okay. Now in Photoshop, what let me just explain to you real quickly, and I think you'll. This is kind of a technical explanation, but I'm going to go back to InDesign and show you this. Okay, let's say that this is a pixel. Okay, and well, I'll use these black boxes here because I already have them here. Let's say that's a pixel, and now this is a separate pixel, and this is a separate pixel. Let me do this real quick. Sorry, and I don't mean to make this complicated by any means, but I want to make an example here. I'm going to just do this and just make a lot of these pixels here, just so that you can see, get an idea for this. Okay, so let me zoom in here. Okay, so let's say this is the photo. All right, let's say this is a high resolution image, meaning that each one of these pixels are individual pixels, dedicated pixels for that particular area of the photo. Now, let's say we shot this at the high resolution setting in our camera. Let's say we shot another photo at a lower resolution. Okay, so a lower resolution would mean that we would have less pixels in our image, right? Because it's lower resolution. We would still see the same image, but we wouldn't have as many pixels. Okay. Now, if you took this image into Photoshop and you added pixels, which you can do, okay, you can do, but what you're adding are not new pixels, you're interpolating. And what interpolation means is that you're taking an existing pixel and just copying it. And taking an existing pixel and copying it. Taking an existing pixel and copying it. So these are actually the same pixels. They're not new. And so you fill this with 300 pixels per inch, but they're not native pixels. That's called interpolation. Interpolation simply means that you're copying existing pixels next to each other.
Does that mean that it's just gonna get blurry?
No, but it's not going to increase the sharpness because you're not adding new information, right? It's just copied information. It's not the actual, it's not new information that a high res image would have, right? Especially with color. With color, as you move across a photo, those colors are blending into different colors, right? Now imagine just copying the same pixel next to each other. Do you get a new color? No, you get the same color as you copied. So color is not going to be any better. It's just going to be filled with copies. Okay? So that's why I want to make a point that you can fake more resolution, but you're not getting more resolution because you're not creating new pixels. All you're doing is copying.
So what you're saying is, and I think that's how I'm getting it, is like if you had a job where you had to do that, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's not gonna it's gonna be a fake version. It's not gonna be the original version.
Right. And there are instances, honestly, Cindy, where you would have to do that. Okay. You would have to do that because you have no choice. You don't have any other photo to use, and that's the only photo, and the client insists that it be this big. Okay. And as much as you try and explain this to a client, which they'll never understand, okay, I guarantee you. But the more you try and explain that you can't have this photo this big because it doesn't have enough resolution, if they insist that it has to be that big, then you have to take it into Photoshop and interpolate it. Okay? It's not the best thing to do, but you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, so you have to do it. Okay. So that's basically, and I don't mean to make this all about resolution, prepress, because there's so much more to prepress than just understanding resolution, but that is one of the main things we have to understand because we can't go further. Like I said, we can't create a document for print if our resolution of our photos are not right. Alrighty. Let me go back here. And so I've covered everything that's going to be on this quiz. You will find the quiz under quizzes, okay, in your Canvas. And if you click on quizzes, you will see the resolution quiz right here. So you'll click on that. It's due on Sunday, okay, at midnight, Sunday. So it will be everything that I talked about in this video. So I kind of pretty much just gave you all the questions, and I'm sure you'll do fine. Okay, so don't freak out just because it's a quiz. I know a lot of my students sometimes, anytime I say test or anytime someone says quiz or test, suddenly this fear kicks in, and it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. Okay, this is just something you already know. Okay. I had some other things that I wanted to talk about, and let me just talk about packaging a file because that's part of prepress too. And I'll try and be as brief as this. This is not nearly as involved. I'm going to go to InDesign and okay. After you created your InDesign document and it's now going to be sent to a printer, and this is going to vary from printer to printer. So like I said in the last class, talk to your printer. If you know who's going to print the job, it's just essential that you communicate with your printer. And what you're going to do, one of the questions is you're going to ask them, what kind of file do you require? What file do you want me to send you? I did the ad or the poster in InDesign, or I did it in Photoshop. Do you want a Photoshop file? Do you want a native InDesign file? Or a native Photoshop or Illustrator file? Or do you want a PDF? Okay, now we all know what PDF files are, right? A PDF is a lot of times what printers these days want. They want PDFs. And the reason they want a PDF is because everything is baked into the file. The fonts, the photos, everything. They do not need you to send them fonts. They don't need you to send them photos. They don't need any links at all to that native file. Like if you sent them an InDesign file, you would have to send them not only the InDesign document, but all the photos in that file and all the fonts that you used, right? In Quark, it was called suitcase. You had to create a suitcase, meaning that you had to package everything up that was in that document. The advantage of a PDF file for a printer is that it's clean. Everything is in that one file, so they don't have to mess with anything. If they don't have the font that you used, it's baked into the file. It's going to print exactly the way you want it to print. They don't have to have that font on their system. Now that's one of the best advantages for a printer. It's very low maintenance. They don't have to deal with stuff. But here's a problem of sending a PDF, is that because it's baked into that file, if they see a mistake, if you made a spelling mistake and they see that, they can't fix it, right? They need the native file, InDesign or Photoshop, in order to get into that file and fix it. So it delays the process. Okay, if they find a mistake, they're going to have to call you. You're going to have to make the change, and then you're going to have to remake the PDF and send it to them. So in that sense, revisions are very timely. Okay, they take a lot of time if there is back and forth. Now, if they had your original InDesign document and all the links to it, then they can open up InDesign and quickly make that change. They'll call you and they'll say, hey, you had a big mistake. You had a big spelling error in the headline, but we fixed it for you. Okay? And that does not disrupt their schedule. They don't have to send the file back to you. So they might want the original InDesign document. If you send them just the save file, they will not be able to open it. If you remember, after you save an InDesign file, right? See this file right here? I'm going to bring in a photo here just to throw something else in there. Okay, photo. I've got a photo. I've got a font here that I'm using. I've got, some other graphics here. Let me just throw something else in here. Okay, maybe some type in a specific typeface that only I have on my computer. Okay, they don't have this. Let's say lemon milk. And, okay. All right. So here's my document. Here's what I want printed. And they want the InDesign file. Okay, now what do we do at the end of a document? We save it, right? So I'm going to go up to File and Save. And I'm going to call this Add Advertisement. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. Boom. And there it is, right? Advertisement. Now you would think all I need to do is send them this file. But if you sent them this file, they would not be able to open it. And the reason why is because this file is just instructions to this document. It does not contain the photo. It doesn't contain the typeface used here or here. So we can't do that. We can't just send an InDesign file. What we have to do is we have to package this up. And by packaging, it's going to collect all of the elements that are in this file. So watch what I do now. I'm going to go back to InDesign, and I'm going to go up to File, only this time I'm going to go all the way down here to Package. Okay. Now we still have to save initially. We have to save the file. Okay, so that's the first thing you would do, and create one of these. But we're going to package this now, and I'm going to click Package, and then we get the Package dialog box here. Now if you look at the Package dialog box, it's broken up into all of these things, okay, and we can go through these menus, but I'm not. Basically, these are the fonts that are used in this document. See how it recognizes lemon milk, right? That's lemon milk here. It also recognizes Minion Pro. That's this typeface right here. Now your printer might not even have these fonts, right? So that's why they can't open up just this file. So it also tells you what photos you have. It shows that you have the kitchen JPEG, and it's going to include that with the package. Include this photo right here. And then the colors that you used, in this we didn't use any specific colors, the print settings, the page setup, all of that information. Okay, so now I'm going to click Package. This is going to tell you what it's going to collect. Right now it's going to collect all the fonts that you used, all the linked graphics, meaning photos, illustrations, okay? Copy link graphics, meaning the kitchen photo. It's going to update graphic links in the package, meaning that if you added something at the last minute, it will automatically update it. Let's say you added something here and you didn't save it yet, and then you go straight to package. It will update whatever you last put in there. It will create an IDML file. Now this is very important. And a PDF file. Okay, so it will automatically give them the PDF file if they need it. But this IDML file is really important. And let me explain to you what an IDML is. You are using a version of InDesign right now. And I don't know what version that is. It might be the latest version, but then again, it might not be the latest version because they're always updating InDesign and Photoshop. So let's say you've been using InDesign for 2 years and you have an old version of it. Or let's say the printer has an old version of it. And there's a lot of printers that don't have the latest version. Let's say you created this document on the newest version of InDesign. Well, even if you send them an InDesign file with all the links, they still won't be able to open it because they have an older version. You created it on a newer version, they have an older version, can't open it. Does that make sense, right? You
Yes.
cannot open a new version on an old version of InDesign. It just won't work. So what InDesign does is it creates this thing called an IDML file, which means that anyone with an older version of InDesign can open up your newer version because it creates the older version here. Okay? That's basically what it's doing. It's creating a version that all older programs can open. All older versions of InDesign can open. All the way back to, real old versions of InDesign. So that is vitally important when you send a package to another person, because if they don't have the same version as you, they're not going to be able to open it. Okay, so now I'm going to click Package, and it's saved to the desktop here. So on my desktop, you'll see, if I can move this over here, I can't. I'll click Package and I'll click OK. And it's going to create that package. It's right over here. Unfortunately, it's right there. Okay? Advertisement folder. That's the package that InDesign created. Now let's look inside this folder and see what we get. Okay, we get the IDML file. We get the InDesign native file. So if they have the same version as you, they're going to open this one up. If they have an older version than you, they're going to open up this one. They have a PDF that is automatically created. So if they need that, they have it. You don't have to make one separately. They have all of the fonts that you used in your design. It shows Lemon Milk and Minion Pro. And they can load that on their system and it will be recognized when they open up your InDesign file. They also have any links to photos and illustrations. In this case, we only have one photo, which is the kitchen, right? So they have that now. So now when they open up this InDesign file, everything opens clean and smooth. They have no problems. And now if there's a typo that they need to fix right away, they can fix it. Okay? They don't have to send you back a PDF and then you have to fix it yourself. So that is packaging. And packaging not only is important when you're sending work to printers, but it also is important when you're moving files from, let's say, work to home. Okay? Let's say you design the piece at work and then you want to take it home to work on it because it's due tomorrow, right? You have to do some work at home. So you package up that file and you open it up on your computer at home and everything opens up clean. You make the changes at home. You keep working on it, right? You added more things. Before you take it back to work, you have to repackage it. Okay? Package up any new photos that you added, any new fonts that you added, and then you go back to work and you open up that package and everything opens up clean. Okay? So Quark had a great name for it. It was a suitcase. And it was almost like if you're moving from hotel to hotel, you always have to pack up your suitcase. And if you move to another hotel, you got to pack the suitcase up again. So wherever you move, you have to package your InDesign file. That's part of Prepress. That's part of knowing how to move a file from place to place. Okay? And for now, that's all I'm going to deal with. I know it was kind of a lot, and I know I was very repetitive in my explanation there. But if those are the only two things we've covered so far, which is resolution and packaging, then fine. We've learned a lot. You've
I
learned.
have one more question.
Yes.
The packaging thing is it only on InDesign or is there different versions on it in different programs?
Okay.
Right?
You do not have to do this in Illustrator or Photoshop. And the reason is those programs embed everything into the file. Okay? It's kind of like a PDF. All you have to do is save a Photoshop file and then you can open it up, on another computer. You don't have to do any kind of packaging. When you bring a photo into Photoshop, it is embedded in that file. And that's why Photoshop files are so big. When you bring a photo into InDesign, this photo is not in this file. It's being referenced to wherever that photo is. So that way, it keeps this file very small. So to answer your question, no. Okay, you don't have to do that with Photoshop or Illustrator. But with InDesign, you definitely have to do that. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to open it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Or again, like I said, the most of what I want to talk about in this module is business ethics. But I want to get through Prepress in the first couple of days, 3 days. I'll probably only spend another day in Prepress. Or I might just jump right to business ethics on next week and then we'll come back to prepress maybe for a day at the end of the module. Okay, so hang in there, you guys. I mean, this is kind of necessary stuff that we need to know. It's not, computer work and all the fun stuff of designing graphics and stuff, but it's very important, and we got to know this. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen and wish you guys all I'm glad to see you also, Cindy, this morning. I got your email. So your mom is getting her vaccine today or got it already? Or
Well, the thing is, I was supposed to take her, but
Mm-hmm.
she found somebody else to take her. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's great. That's great. I got mine and had some side effects, but I'm glad I got it.
yeah, I
So,
had mine because I had
uh-huh.
diabetes and I had a big bruise for like I want to say a week.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
Did you
I
feel sick at all afterwards or
no, but I
not
had
really?
that really painful arm thing. You know how
Oh, okay.
that was really bad.
Yeah. I got fever and chills and body aches and I got everything. It's terrible. But it only lasted 24 hours, so I was okay. All right, Steve, you okay with all of this now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the quiz will be fine. You guys will do great. And then on Monday we'll or I'm sorry, on Tuesday we'll pick up again.